Hey there, this is Dave from The Greg and Dave Show. Thank you for listening to the following broadcast here on Public House Media.
This is Kim Meyer, host of Choose to Rise, here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Choose to Rise, where we talk about positive mindsets, uplifting content that just helps you improve your life overall. A new show comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in podcast version, or you can catch me live on the Public House Media Facebook page every weekday or morning around 6:45 Central Standard Time. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Choose to Rise. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
I've never lost a game. I just ran out of time and forgot to reset the clock. Welcome to Completely Serious. That catchphrase was sent to us by Jordan McKell. Thank you, Jordan, for that timely catchphrase. Welcome again. We like to welcome you twice on this podcast because once isn't enough. People are used to one welcome. Everyone is welcome no matter where you go, really. Even those mean old in-laws that you just can't stand will welcome you later this month when you visit their home for Thanksgiving or whatever it may be. But two welcomes, that actually means something. Anyways, this podcast is part of the Public House Media family. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Ryan Piers. This is the show where we have fun and talk sports, because just talking about sports isn't enough, nor is having fun. On this podcast, we do both. And today we bring on a guy who seems to always have fun whenever he is talking sports. He is the pre- and post-game show host of the Chicago Cubs, sometimes does some play-by-play, and is an update anchor on WSCR The Score in Chicago, Mark Grote. Mark, thank you for joining us. So nice of you to join us today.
Yeah, Ryan, absolutely. And based on your intro, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I feel very welcome right now on your show. And I am looking forward to having fun because, hey, sports is serious, but every once in a while you got to remember that it's really not that serious.
It's not, and that's what we like to do here on Completely Serious. We like to have fun, most importantly, and of course talking sports is a part of it. And for you, your big part of the sports season is over. Baseball season over, winter is coming, as that one meme so aptly puts it. What are you doing to keep yourself from going insane now that we are more than about 100 days away from opening day?
I did enjoy, or have enjoyed, since the Cubs season ended, I have enjoyed one of my favorite activities, and that's a little thing I call alarm clock-free sleep, where you just, it's like the greatest thing ever. Like, you don't set an alarm. I mean, like, think like people listening right now probably have a hard time relating to that, because how often do you actually get to do that, where you're like, I don't care what time my body wakes up. And I've averaged, I'd say on average, I've been getting up around, just on average, okay, 11 o'clock, but there has been a 1 p.m. and there's been a couple of nooners. Unfortunately today, the alarm clock free sleep ended for me because I do have to justify my existence in the Cubs world by working a couple of days a week for CBS Radio and The Score, as you mentioned, doing updates, filling in, hosting, whatever it is I have to do to justify my existence and get back to April.
Yeah, it's always a good feeling when you wake up and the sun is actually starting to set sometimes, when you've slept a lot. You have been the pregame show host for the Cubs for the past 3 seasons. In that time, the Cubs have gone to 3 NLCSs. Then they've advanced in one of them to the World Series and won that. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert on data analytics, but there is an obvious correlation between when you took the job and the Cubs started winning, it seems like.
It's pretty clear. I mean, some people just say, well, yeah, it's just coincidence or whatever. No, you say coincidence, I say correlation. And, it's something that I'll be taking to my upcoming contract negotiations as well. Yeah, Cubs want winners in that clubhouse. And I believe that I am representing that very well. But I have to say that, like, as it pertains to that exactly, it's funny because, like, before 2015, and that was, as you correctly said, that I just finished my 3rd year doing it, before 2015, the Cubs were just absolute misery, basically from 2009 on, it was just complete hell if you were broadcasting. Well, I wouldn't say that. It's still a great gig no matter what.
Sure.
But I mean, like I would imagine that some people in the business that have done the same job that I have done, whether it's with the Cubs or any team, probably resent me a little bit because I have no idea what it's like to do a pre and post game show for a losing team. And even my broadcast partners, Pat Hughes and Ron Coomer, like to kind of kid me about that as well, that they've seen it all, especially Pat Hughes, having been with the Cubs for so long. And here I come along, and my expectation is just go to the NLCS and maybe win a World Series here and there.
A pretty good start to your Cubs career. What is a typical day like for you during Cubs season? I would imagine it's more than just watching baseball and hanging out with Pat Hughes and Ron Coomer.
No, that's about it.
Oh, it is? Okay, gotcha. I picture you walking into the stadium 5 minutes before your pregame show and just rolling.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. There we go.
Yeah. So that's it. No, actually, the day is, I'm glad you asked that because I don't think people have a really good idea of what actually goes into a baseball day. I mean, it is a long season, and they are definitely long days. Like, let's just say a 7:05 game for the Cubs. I'll get to the ballpark. Usually on average around 2:30 p.m. or so. I'll get set up in the booth, get all my notes gathered, just literally plug in the computer, get everything situated the way I like it. The clubhouse then usually opens for a 7:05 game. The Cubs clubhouse will open around 3:35 for us. So we go down there, mingle with the players a little bit. I conduct, a pregame interview with at least one player, sometimes two. And so we're usually down in the clubhouse, I would say, for about 2 hours or so, just, getting our chances with players. And then there's the sort of formal pregame press conference with Joe Maddon where, all the media's herded into a room and, we get our chances to ask Joe Maddon questions. So, then I scoot back upstairs and, I typically will edit my own interview. I'll throw it into the computer. I'll get it nice and tight and sounding the way I like it to. One of the difficulties with that is that, I only get in that interview maybe about 2 minutes, and I'll usually have about 5 minutes of content.
Okay.
So, I got to shave it off, make me sound good, make the player sound good, get that in, and then get all my other elements together. There's several different pregame show elements that I have to get set on, read a bunch of previews. Obviously, I'll comb through the newspapers online, see what they know, and, try to get as much of an idea for the team that the Cubs are playing as well. So, in this day and age, it's like a blessing and a curse that there's endless information, which is good because we can get our hands on everything, but then you don't really know where to stop either because you can go to 1,000 different publications. You can get every little piece of minutia you want, but the idea is to find stuff that's interesting so we're not boring our audience.
Take me through the locker room when the Cubs won the World Series. I like to imagine that the heavens split and God himself arrived just to take a selfie with Kyle Schwarber as the team drank the night away. But what was that like?
Well, I have to tell you, I was actually not in the clubhouse proper when. Yeah, so I was in Cleveland, obviously. Yeah. But I was in the booth conducting traffic up there and doing the post game show from that spot. I can tell you that my feeling up there, it was crazy because when you're doing the job. Of course, you want the team that you're covering to win. That's not everybody does, and anybody who tells you anything differently would be crazy or they would be lying. Of course, you want your team to win because it's good for everybody. So typically, a win or a loss during the regular season, you don't get emotional about it. But when they won that World Series, it was hard not to actually feel something. A lot of people will also say, well, it didn't really sink in for me right away. It took a couple the Cubs winning the World Series sunk in for me immediately, and just watching the party down on the field, and then as soon as the sort of emotion or the jolt wore off from me, it was like, okay, now I got to do this post game justice. This is a World Series. This is the Game 7. Cubs won the World Series post game. Don't screw this up, and make sure you're on your game more than ever with again the endless notes and the drama that took place and the interviews that we're going to have down on the field. So for me, it went from enjoy the moment for a second to make sure you present a World Series winning post-game show. And then after, I did that, I got to go down in the tunnel with the team, and there were just all sorts of family members and players hanging out, and that's where I got to kind of see them and talk to them, and then get on the team buses, which was just such a blast because it was just this. It was like all the relief in the world, meeting all the elation in the world for every single person that was part of that Cubs organization, because it was so damn stressful.
Oh yeah.
As any follower knows, it was just like it was so hard to take every single pitch of the postseason run, especially that Game 7. So it was like equal parts relief and elation, like I said.
Is baseball in a good place right now? Because Game 7 of this past World Series had like a 19 rating, I think. And Game 7 of the Cubs World Series win had, I believe, a 25, which is unheard of. It just feels like there's more buzz around baseball today than there has been in the past couple years.
Well, I think that it was a great World Series. I'll say that. And I think that when you have teams like the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees and the Chicago Cubs at this point, and even obviously the World Series champion, Houston Astros. We're talking about big markets, and even the Boston Red Sox being a good team right now. I think that helps a lot. I mean, in our condensed world due to social media, where I don't think big markets mean as much as they once did, but the great story of the Cubs last year obviously was its own entity. This year, I thought it was just such a fun World Series to watch, and I do think that the home runs help a lot. I mean, baseball purists want to tell you about, pitching and defense, and that's great, and we all know how important that is. But what's really fun to watch is 3-run homers, and we saw a lot of that in the World Series. So I think that it was a heck of a World Series. I think the sport is moving in the right direction. I mean, it's never going to. I don't think in our lifetime, or at least in my lifetime, it's ever going to overtake the NFL and be the sport like it once was, in my lifetime watching in the 80s and the 70s to some degree as well, and then the golden era of way back when. I don't know that it's ever going to get to that point again, but yeah, I'd say it's in the right direction. One thing that I guess bothers me a little bit is that when the World Series was going on, all the baseball purists were out there telling, you'd see a lot of tweets of people saying, this is why I love baseball. When you have to sort of promote your sport along the way, then I feel like it's still lagging a little bit when everybody sort of tells you how great baseball is. When you have to prove your point about something, then that tells me that you're still behind a bit, but it's getting to be at a better place. I mean, as if it's like not in a good place already. But yeah, I know what the question is.
You've had the chance to meet, and I wanted to ask you about this. You've had the chance to meet and shake the hand of Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, I believe. Being a fan, What was that like for you, and have you washed your hands since?
I have to tell you, I am a legit Pearl Jam fan to begin with. Pearl Jam is the only band that has ever been my favorite band. I mean, I loved all the grunge stuff. So first of all, I'm legit know the Pearl Jam B-sides and all the minutia that comes with Pearl Jam. And I never stopped, where a lot of people kind of got off board with grunge and Pearl Jam. I never stopped loving it. And just it's the only concert too that I will travel out of my way to go to. So I want to give you that as the background. So having Eddie Vedder coming up there the last 3 years and just sort of just walk into the booth every once in a while. There's never this big production. I'll this year, for example, it was, I don't even remember what game it was, but it might have been a playoff game. I don't even remember. But anyway, I'm sitting there. I'm in the back of the booth. My seat, my station, my broadcast position is right by the door. And Dave Miska, who's our engineer, kind of said, and we keep our door open too. And he said, "Hey, Eddie Vedder's right behind you." I'm like, "Huh? What?" He goes, "Eddie Vedder's right behind you." So I turn around. There's Ed. And, I just turned around and said, "Oh, hey, Eddie Vedder." And he's like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" I was like, come on in. And, he shakes our hands and goes and sit by Pat and Ron. And the coolest thing this year was, after he did his shtick on the air, he got off, and I said to him, I reminded him, without trying to go all fanboy, I said, I really appreciate you and Pearl Jam, big fan. And he goes, well, I guarantee you I listen to you a lot more than you listen to me.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, awesome. So, yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's one of the moments you just want to relive over and over again. That's really cool. Mark, on Completely Serious, we like to ask questions that are a little bit off the wall, and we'll close with this. I got one that's a little bit out there for you. It's a hypothetical question, and we like to give our guests pretty much no time to prepare for these. So I'm just, with that in mind, going to pose it to you and see how you do. We are coming up on Thanksgiving, and I want you to tell me if you could bring 3 players to a Thanksgiving dinner, who would they be and why? I'll give you some time to think by giving you mine. First, I'm going to go with Anthony Rizzo because the Italian heritage probably is going to bring a tasty dish with him, or at the very least, if something goes wrong, he can whip up something new in the kitchen. Second, Javi Baez because he has those lightning-quick hands, and if someone drops some food, he can probably grab it before it hits the carpet. And my third one, after Javi and Anthony Rizzo, is Carl Edwards Jr. because he's so skinny I doubt he would really eat that much, thus there's more for everyone else. So my 3 would be, my 3 are Carl, Anthony, and Javi Baez, but if you could pick 3 Cubs players to bring to a Thanksgiving dinner, who would they be and why?
All right, I'm going to go with the first guy that comes to mind in this scenario would be Chris Bryant, and the reason why is because he is over-the-top polite. He wouldn't make a fool of himself. Everybody would like him. I could see him leading the Thanksgiving prayer. He would just be delightful. I could see him bringing several side dishes as well, like recipes of his own that he had been looking at online or whatever.
Oh, so sure, Pinterest recipes. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Like Chris Bryant, he would just be so like he would work the room. He would talk to everybody. He'd probably sign autographs for my family members. He'd be an easy get. Like I wouldn't have to worry about him in any way, shape, or form. I think I would also like to have Kyle Schwarber there, just because I want to see that guy attack a turkey.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun to see, because I could see him with the apron, carving the turkey and eating the fat, and going to town on a leg. So I think that would be really interesting. And then I think that, now this one's a little bit alternative, I would say. I would say that my third guy would probably be Justin Grimm, because he's a goofball. I don't know, a lot of people may not know that about him, because I know he's not the most high-profile guy, but he's a goofball. He's kind of funny. He's like a little kid. He could probably play with kids at the Thanksgiving party, and he would probably entertain anybody and be willing to have any kind of conversation, and he would make a lot of fun jokes. So you'd have the funny guy, you'd have the guy Schwarber who would put on a clinic eating, and then you'd have the nice guy and Chris Bryant. So that's the way it's going to go down. And I got to tell you, as I'm giving you this answer, I'm feeling pretty good about myself with that answer, not knowing that you were going to ask that. I think I just gave you a pretty thorough answer.
That was great. No, I really appreciate it. Usually those type of questions reveal maybe like a 10-second explanation for each. That was, you thought of the chemistry, you thought of how they would treat people. You even have the idea of kind of almost a scientific reason behind Kyle Schwarber. Like, you're curious as to what he would actually do when he gets his hand on a lot of food. That was really well done.
Yeah, and I think that, the part of the Schwarber thing, too, would be to see the dessert tray as well, and him school on that. I didn't even mention that with Schwarber. I meant to throw that in there as well. So I just think it would be what they call a process with Kyle Schwarber.
Mark Grote, thanks again for joining us on Completely Serious. Can you remind people where they can find you on social media?
Absolutely, yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Mark Grote Sports, and the last name is spelled Grote, so at Mark Grote Sports. I usually play there, and we can hang out on Twitter. And you can find me on I'm on Instagram under my name, Mark Grote, and Facebook, same deal, Mark Grote. So, I'm on all the things. And if you're really crazy and you want to just go nuts, we could hang out on LinkedIn too. And celebrate birthdays and work anniversaries and things like that.
That is a new one. Yeah, the LinkedIn's not one where people normally throw out there, but find Mark Grote on LinkedIn as well. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a safe place to be, LinkedIn.
Mark, thanks a lot. We really appreciate it. That was Mark Grote on Completely Serious, part of the Public House Media family. We'll see you next week.